Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you so much for joining me this evening on In Review, where we look at some of the top news of this week. And of course, today is the 22nd of July, 2021. And there's always something new. One of the challenges we have sometimes is that do we break from the narratives of typical media, or actually we give our perspective from our side of the thinking as to the present day. COVID, of course, is one of the main things which has been in the news for a season, more than a season, for a bit. But nevertheless, still, we will go straight into it, and I will bring in my team. But first of all, I just want to make sure if you can hear me, if you can see me, let me know if you can see clearly, if the screen is clear. Any hiccups or whatever, just let me know. Remember to like and subscribe to the show. If you're on YouTube, thank you so much. Follow the show, share it. If you're on Facebook, share it as well. And thank you so much. But without further ado, let me bring in my esteemed co-host today. And I go straight with Sir Garry Graham. How are you, sir?
Not doing bad at all. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm not bad, not bad, not bad. Thank you so much for joining. And ladies and gentlemen, Garry Graham joined us today. Reverend Garry Graham, minister from the Church of God of Prophecy in Leeds. And Garry will tell us more about that so we can all come to church and make sure that
all roads lead to Chapeltown. Chapeltown Road Leeds, LS748Z. So you can
Wow, that's awesome. Well, let me just bring in Mr. Truth. Anthony Francis, sir, how are you doing?
Good to see you again. Good evening, Selborne. Your image, by the way, is blurred.
Is it blurred? Garry, is my image is blurred, Garry, from your side?
Not much, no, but you're lagging behind a bit. It looks like Anthony and myself, we're up to date, mate.
well, could it be that because I don't have a tan like Anthony? Is it that's what you're looking at?
Well, it could be that. It could be that.
Because Anthony, you said you had a tan this week, didn't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't normally look like this, but the sun has been kind to me.
Well, you know what? I will do a little switching a while ago and put on my thing. But anyway, guys, listen. It's a great week this week, and while I do some little hiccups there, what's your take on the week so far in regards to the developments, especially regarding COVID? And I'm not going to go into the figures unless anybody got the figures, but more importantly, this whole thing about COVID vaccine and the passport, the similarities. It's of France, which is talking about, hey, you got to have it before you can go to some key places. The Prime Minister is also, it dropped from the Prime Minister's mouth saying the double jab is more important and more effective than just a negative test. Yeah, Anthony, if you can start with that, what's your take on that? So while I try to sort out my image.
Yeah, well, I think certainly there's been some developments with regards to the vaccine and how it's been reflected in terms of the sort of way that countries are managing it now. So, for example, as you mentioned with France, they're wanting people, for example, to visit some of their tourist attractions to either be fully vaccinated or to have a negative test before they go in to their venues. And I suppose if a country like France does it, we've already seen over here in the UK, when I went to Wimbledon a few weeks ago, that I had to produce a confirmation that I had either both my jabs. My son, who came with me, he also had to have confirmation that he had a PCR test 48 hours before. So yes. This seems to be the way things are developing, that different countries are beginning to introduce sort of mandatory confirmation that you've either had the jab or that you are negative before you enter these venues. And I think this is the thin slope in terms of where we're now moving towards as restrictions ease. We've had the problems with the pinging. I foresee, I'm not a mind reader, but I don't think it takes a genius to work out that most people will turn off the NHS app now because it's simply causing a problem for them.
Yes.
And we're going to have to sort of get used to producing paperwork to prove that we are safe to go into venues.
Interesting. And so Garry, what do you think? Do you think it's a slippery slope regarding this
Well,
COVID passport, which has been talked about for a long time? They've been talking about it for a long time, and it's like it's happening subtle in a way.
it will come in subtly, but I believe, I mean, my learned friend Anthony, he shared about the pingdemic. We had the pandemic, now we've got the pingdemic. I'm just wondering which one is going to outdo the other. And there seems to be a lot of people who have signed on to the pinging and are signing off because they've been told that they need to stay home. I just think that there is something underneath all of that. I'm not an expert in the pandemic, neither in the pingdemic. I haven't got a clue in that per se. But I think that the numbers you mentioned about the numbers, I think if I'm reading this thing correctly, there's 38,000 that has new cases today, up to date, I've thought, and deaths, there's 63 deaths. If I'm reading the statistics, what I've got here, that I've just more or less tried to get up. So things, it would seem that things are going up. Now, obviously, we've got the experts out there, some who are against and some who are for. Now,
Yes.
now obviously, the more you test is the more you're going to find. If the government, if those who are in government or in authority stops the testing, obviously the figures are going to go down, aren't they? If I'm right. So I'm just saying here that I don't really like what's going on as an individual. I think that the government ought to allow people to make up their minds. I'm always on that. Whether you want to have your vaccine or not, it shouldn't be anybody else's decision but your own or the individual's own.
I saw a video the other day, and it was a very comedy. It was a comedy. This guy dancing outside this nightclub, and he was just really going for it hard. And they were putting pictures saying, "This is the way forward. If you're not vaccinated, then you're going to be outside of things, supermarkets." Anthony, in a practical sense, and you're not a lawyer, but like with civil liberties, we're going to go on to the pinging bit with the 600,000 or so are being pinged and affecting jobs and organizations. But let's deal with this whole thing regarding the what you call it again? The what did we say again? The
pandemic?
No, not the pandemic. Sorry, the vaccine, the vaccine, the passport. My apologies, the passport.
Okay. Right.
And what France is actually doing, and what the UK is actually alluding to. Is it a dangerous route?
Well, it's dangerous in the sense of as I think you're moving towards, or you're referring to, in terms of our liberties to be able to have a choice, which is what Pastor Graham was saying, that people should either be able to say I don't want to have the vaccine, or they should be happy to take it. I don't think people should be forced, and as a consequence of deciding that they don't want to take the vaccine, it shouldn't be that therefore they are excluded from being able to participate in things like going to supermarkets or to venues. However, I think what will probably happen is organizations will, by de facto, make it mandatory that to go into their establishments, they want some sort of proof that you are safe to go in there. And by default, that would mean you have to actually either produce a negative flow test or confirmation of your jab. So either way, the organizations themselves may by default force people to actually have to do one or the other. So, it may be now that companies or countries like France have started it. But as I said, I mean, when I went to Wimbledon, if I didn't produce the confirmation from my NHS app that I had been double jabbed, and if my son hadn't come with his PCR test saying he was negative, we wouldn't have got in. Simple as that.
Yeah. Garry, do you think what is happening now? Politics is very divisive, anyhow. Conservative, Labour, Democrats, Republican, PNP, JLP. If we're looking at it from a, do you think this is a way whereby one particular government, I can't remember who it was, saying it's unvaccinated persons who are also creating the problem? Is it putting people against each other at the same time? Shouldn't there be a way that you try to harmonize it in a more diplomatic way? But it's becoming very forceful and straight to the point.
I do believe that if this situation is not handled properly, it will pit the vaccinated against the unvaccinated. It will. There's going to be a segregation in society. I can only see that happening because the vaccinated is going to look on those who are not vaccinated and say, well, you are the ones causing the problem and you need to do so. And I don't think that those in authority, those who have, who can say anything at all, is saying anything to allay the fears of people.
Yeah.
Whatever they are doing or whatever is being done, it's going to inflame the situation. Things are going to get in such a way that there's going to be problems. There will be problems because what we're not really being told and shown. For example, over the last few weeks, with this pandemic coming and going and being spoken of, there were demonstrations in the capital. There were demonstrations in one or two other cities in this country, and nothing at all against the vaccine or against the lockdown and how things were being done. And nothing at all was being said. Nothing. There was nothing in the news. Now, when you look on all the other news agencies outside that are based outside of the United Kingdom,
yes,
that is when we'll be hearing, oh, there was a demonstration at Trafalgar Square or in Bristol or in Leeds. But in the UK, you're not hearing anything, which suggests to me that the authorities within the United Kingdom are trying to sway the minds of its citizens in a particular direction.
Anthony, Dominic Cummings, the guy who actually drive to test his glasses, has been cited by the news a lot, and he's been saying some things that even if when the prime minister won, they wanted to actually overthrow him at the same time. And he's saying some things. Do you believe that the government has their finger on the pulse of what is happening? Or, is Dominic, I don't want to give Dominic too much credence, but somehow it makes you wonder, isn't it? The management of the
need to wonder, Selborne. I mean, obviously, I mentioned this about a year ago when we first talked about the pandemic, and I think it's in the public domain that Boris Johnson did not attend the first 5 what do they call it, meetings? Cobra meetings. Correct. Thanks, Pastor. So so if Boris Johnson couldn't find it upon himself to actually attend any of those Cobra meetings, it showed what his position was, or in terms of what he thought about the pandemic and the situation. He just wasn't interested at all. So I don't think we can dismiss Dominic Cummings in terms of what he's been saying, because he was actually close to the Prime Minister. In fact, not only was he close, as we've heard this week, he actually was making the decisions. And I don't think we can, we need to look too far to actually see that when Boris is challenged in Question Time and other media outlets, he never gives the straight answer because he never seems to have one. It's always a sort of bumbling, sort of jokey, he tries to deflect the situation quite well, but most of the time he actually just talks gibberish. So I think it's clear that Boris Johnson himself, he needs people like Dominic Cummings and others, which is the reason why he hasn't sacked Priti Patel, Gavin Williams, why he didn't want to sack Matt Hancock, because he needs all these people to keep him going. So, I actually do believe the majority of what Dominic Cummings has said. I know he's a man scorned and he wants to get his pound of flesh, but let's be honest, let's be truthful. there's, that he's been showing texts that he's received from Boris Johnson, and he's made them public. So, we have to believe him.
Harry, what's your take on that?
Well, let me say this here before I go any further, right? That my views are mine solely and wholly. I'm responsible for what I say. I'm not speaking on behalf of my church. So if there's anybody out there,
you bring the disclaimer here.
If there's anybody out there that wants to take me on to say that I'm speaking on and for my church, I am not. I'm speaking for myself. I speak only for Garry Graham. I believe anyway that it's sad. I fully agree with what Anthony has said in relation to what's going on in government. I believe that our leaders have something on each other, because our leaders did not want to sack anybody. He doesn't want to sack anybody, but there is something going on, because if there's an investigation, from what I understand, or what happened a few weeks ago when there was a camera spying on a certain individual. Yes, that
space and go to my place. That's what it's called. Space and go to my place.
Well, with that camera that was in that minister's office, it is only on and by the express permission, for what I understand, of the Prime Minister for such a thing to take place. Now, the question is, did he know it was there? Did he know, and did he give permission? Now, you see, there's too many things happening in our world, my friend. There's too many things happening in government and in places of influence, that there are so many question marks on top and all over the place. You don't know where to start, and you don't know who to believe. And even though Dominic Cummings may be spilling the beans, but because of where he has been, because of who he is and was, people are not going to believe what he says. Even if it's the truth, they're going to be saying that he's got an axe to grind. So you don't really know where to start, even with him.
I think just to add before we move on, but I think one thing that which is clear and we shouldn't forget is that don't forget that Boris Johnson did actually set up an independent review of the ministerial code, and the guy who was in fact in charge of it found that Priti Patel had actually broken that ministerial code, and he chose to do nothing. He actually said, in fact, I'm not, I don't agree, and that guy then left his job. Right. I mean, you can't set up a ministerial investigation with your top Mandarin, only to then, when he gives you the information and the evidence, and then you actually turn around and say, actually, I don't agree with it. So clearly, Boris has chosen his bed in which he wants to lie. And as Pastor has said, he obviously has friends in high places. And as we've now seen with what Dominic Cummings has revealed, most of it, he obviously has made statements and said things where he really didn't know anything about it. So to answer your question, on your original question, I don't believe that the government had a clue what was going on at the beginning of the pandemic. I think that's very clear for us all to see. We don't need to be a brain surgeon to work that one out. There was no PPE. They had no idea what to do with care homes. They had no idea in terms of what we now know Dominic Cummings has revealed in terms of the people who they felt were at risk. Boris Johnson said, if they're 80, they can die. So clearly, they had no clue what was going on. Things have stabilized now because they've had 18 months to get their act together. But in the first couple of months, Boris Johnson was a leader without portfolio.
Okay, in wrapping up on this one, what would your take then be and your advice as the best way to harmonize this situation, which is somewhat going to spill possibly out of control in regards pitting the people against each other? Garry, what would you say? I'm talking about the vaccinated against the unvaccinated, based on how we are seeing things going. How do you think is the best way to deal with the words that are coming out now? I heard that Rishi Sunak, they tend to watch his show. So if you see anything goes down and it shuts down, we used to say that they're watching from down in
What can be said? It's gone too far. I mean, the best thing for them to do, in my estimation, don't say anything at all. Just leave it now. because whatever they do now, because I believe it's handled wrongly. They never did it properly in the first place. So to try and change the narrative in the middle of it right now to the end, then what sense, what value can they bring to it that will change it? I don't think they can do anything to change it now. That's me. That's me.
And Anthony, your take, please.
Well, yeah, I think the pastor is right in that, clearly, I don't think the government are going to put out any statements. I mean, they've already seen what's happening at the moment. And I think probably, I wouldn't say it's best to let sleeping dogs lie, but I do think there is going to be a division between the haves and the have-nots in terms of the vaccine. And I think that what the government is going to do, they're going to probably say, well, if individual organizations want to act in a certain way, they're at their right to do so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, for those who are watching, love to hear your views as well. You can write in and let us hear your perspective in regards to that, regarding the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. What's your take on it? Do you believe that we're going on a precipice where there's going to be an apocalypse or something like that? Where, anyway, I'm just saying that, but many people are saying it. 600,000 persons were pinged. Anthony, you can go on this and you can start because you have been talking about this for a while. 600 people told to isolate by NHS Covid-19 app. And why I said you, because you have been very strong and supportive of the NHS in regards to the work that they have been doing, to the fact that you have also created a petition which went over 100,000 to give them more than just a clap, but to give them monetary rewards. We'll touch on the fact that they got a 3%. You can talk about that later. But this pinging now, because if my neighbor here who is through the walls get a ping or so, they might ping me as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is where I believe the media has really been at fault in the way they've reported this, because we all, until the media reported there had been a situation where people were being pinged and and there was a sensitivity issue with the pinging. I don't think people were really, they were taking it seriously. And, I mean, I was pinged a few weeks ago after going out, and, me and my wife, and in fact, we hadn't gone anywhere in terms of, an enclosed venue. We were at a shopping mall, and then we came home. But as a result of being in that shopping mall, we then both got pinged to say that somebody that we may have come in contact with was tested positive, and we had to isolate for 5 days. So I think that, the media have cottoned onto this, and they've now started to sort of call it Pinggate. They've had ministers who they've rolled out to sort of say that maybe they might set the sensitivity level a bit different. And I think by doing all of this, the narrative that's now been created is that the actual pinging service is unreliable. And now, because that is now got out in the public domain, what people are now going to do is one of two things. They're either going to turn the app off to avoid being pinged, or they're simply going to ignore it. Or the third one is people will use it to their advantage in weather like this to say, I've been pinged, I've got to isolate. So, I think right now what's going to end up happening, a bit like what Pastor Graham was alluding to, I reckon that in the next couple of weeks, I'm pretty sure, sadly, even though the NHS have done a fantastic job, I think they might actually stop the NHS app from being used, because it's now become a bit of a blunt instrument with organisations saying we don't have any staff. They're all, everyone has to go and isolate. So I think I think they'll end up withdrawing the app.
And also, before Garry comes on, I mean, many people, I think one of the new advice was it's like an advisory. It has been changed now to an advisory that you don't have to actually follow it. Before it was a bit more stricter, wasn't it? No.
The minister, he wrongly said it was advisory and then was corrected. So that was another mistake. This guy came out and said it was an advisory. It didn't. When the ping came out originally, nobody was told, or it wasn't mentioned by the government or in any briefing from Downing Street. This is an advisory message. It was told if you get pinged, you have to isolate. Now this guy's come out and said this. Suddenly now we've got you know, it's advisory. We've got this, we've got that. I think the app's dead.
Okay, Garry,
Well,
are you gonna create a burial ceremony?
listen, I mean, I'm reading something here, and again, alluding to what and supporting what Anthony has said there. It says by a gentleman that was on the Today program on Radio 4. He says, if you are pinged, you should self-isolate. I know it poses challenges, and we are seeing reports of shortages which we are monitoring, but the rules are clear, and I think they should be followed. Now, obviously, you do something like that, but businesses, business leaders, managers, business owners, they don't know what to do, because when their workers don't come in because they've been pinged, then they've got a shortfall in their workplaces. And even before the ping start pinging, there was problems happening in the economy anyway. So obviously, they haven't thought these things through at all. I feel very sorry, to tell you the truth, for the NHS, the way how they have been treated. Earlier on in the year, probably later last year, the whole country was asked to stand outside their front doors and clap. And let me say, probably the whole country did do it. And fine, that was great. But when it came down to actually rewarding those who put their lives at risk, what did the government do? They gave them how much? 1% or 3%?
Well, Anthony, you can develop on that window. I think it was 1% first, and now I think recently there's a recommendation for 3%. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. It has now gone to 3%, but it's actually, without going into any detail, I mean, the 3% that they've been given, it isn't what, for example, they've got in Scotland. Scotland have got 4%, and the money that Scotland have got is actually been backdated to the beginning of the year. So they do get the full benefits from the beginning of the pandemic. The UK aren't doing that, and 3%, quite frankly, is a derisory amount. So. This is something that we can have a whole program on, talking about the NHS and how they've been treated. And as you say, I mean, everybody was out there clapping. Boris Johnson himself had his life saved by the NHS. The NHS and the doctors.
Supposedly.
Supposedly. Well, I think I'll trust our NHS rather than America, when Donald Trump suddenly suddenly had it, and then suddenly came on the steps of the White House saying I'm cured. But I think that the NHS deserves more, deserves a lot of credit. They, it's part of the Oxford University and others who work in cooperation with the NHS that have developed the vaccine, and a lot of great things that we ought to be respectful for and grateful for. And it's just sad that when times like this we need them, everyone says great, and when this pandemic is over, it will go back to business as usual, and their pay will be forgotten again.
Well, I'm just reading a couple of person comments here that saying that I choose not to be vaccinated. That is my choice. You to be, that is your choice. That it should work, because the media runs on propaganda. The government media have the public running on fear. Last year, I spoke about the vaccine passport that the government will implement, and they said we were coming up with conspiracy, and here it is being implemented now. And I do recall, that person is correct, because I do recall when they were talking about it last year, people were saying, oh, that's conspiracy, and they were shutting them down, and now it is actually unfolding before our very eyes. Anthony and Garry, there's a bit they're talking about that there's been some food shortages, or talking about food shortages, which apparently is a result of lots of companies having short staff because of the pinging and people being isolating, people being staying home, and it is said there, Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng told the BBC a very narrow list of jobs will be released today. Self-isolation for fully vaccinated people pinged by the app as close contact is due to be scrapped by 16th of August, although there are calls for this deadline to be brought forward. The app alert is advisory only and not enforced by law, unlike a phone call from the test. Is he the same government minister you're talking to that made that error?
No, it was another gentleman actually who made that error. But I think all he's now doing is confirming that the app is going to be
Dead.
dead.
So
Because
Garry, list the service date. List the service date. Sorry for the burial.
Well, I think Pastor Graham, you've got a service to perform there, because it's coming up soon. This particular burial. It's not a question of if, but when. So I think you ought to get prepared for that one.
Which one is that? Is that the vaccine burial or
the up alert, the ping alert, which is they say it soon be done,
But getting back to your question, SYLBOURNE, regarding the food shortages, clearly, I think I'm wondering if the food shortages is also where they're talking about the ping gate is also really the government have conveniently sort of let that one sort of out in the media a bit more to really mask the fact that Brexit is the real reason for a number of these delays. With we all now know what's going on with the Northern Ireland border checks, which has caused a problem. We know that there's been problems with fisheries. We know that we've had companies who have had to set up in the EU in order to avoid the paperwork, etc. So clearly, there's more to the Brexit than meets the eye in terms of delays that have been caused. And I think the ping gate is just really another convenient excuse that the government can hide behind to say that we ought to avoid sort of mass buying in shops because of the ping gate. But really, it's not the ping gate causing it. It's Brexit.
I would agree totally with that. It has nothing to do with COVID or anything like that. Yes. Brexit certainly has not worked. It could have. It probably could have. And I'm not saying I either voted for it or against it. Anything could have worked. But what was quite evident to the whole country was that this government was not prepared at all for anything. They weren't prepared. At one point, I think it was about a year or two before, when there was a particular gentleman in government that went to Europe, went to speak to the president, I believe, of the European Commission or whoever it was, and he went empty-handed. He didn't even bring a pen and a piece of paper. He just went into the office empty-handed. What does that mean? Not even his armor bearer, as what we would call in our churches, right? Was carrying a case. Not even the Bible. If it was the Bible, it wouldn't be too bad. But they never carried anything. So obviously the government was not prepared.
So what we're seeing now, and how they're actually bringing COVID in, like this statement, I don't want people to get the impression that every shelf in every supermarket is bare. That is not the case, but we are certainly concerned about instances of shortages. We're looking at the supply chains of critical industries, and we're reviewing. And then the next paragraph is a record of 618,000 people were pinged. So what you're saying, Anthony, is they are passing this off as a COVID factor, when what you're alluding to, guys, is a Brexit issue.
Correct. And it's going to continue to be a Brexit issue until the government get a grip in terms of sorting this thing out. And as Pastor Graham has mentioned, and I've mentioned, plenty of times, unfortunately, the government simply do not plan. This has been a factor throughout Boris Johnson's time that we've seen, is that they simply fail to plan. They talk a good game, but when push comes to shove, we actually find them wanting every time. They come with empty hands. It's just hollow. And we've seen it in terms of their ministers. We've seen it in terms of Boris. We've seen it in terms of the pandemic, where we were told by Matt Hancock, we have a plan. We have a plan, he said. Right?
I'm looking at my
when everything kicked off, there was no plan.
I'm looking at my conservative membership paper there on the wall.
Take it down.
Well, in support of Anthony, with what Mr. Hancock said, he had a plan, And we all know what that plan was. I won't go any further.
Okay, okay. Well, well, I think we have double up on the whole thing with this. But just one side note before we move on into the space race with the billionaires, which is a new fad. Do you know that when people are asked to be isolated or quarantined in these hotels, what is happening now is that ladies are being raped or being assaulted? I don't know if you heard about that. That is something where lone women in COVID quarantine hotels to get female guards because there have been allegations of sexual harassment. Department of Health and Social Care made a charge after BBC report, which women said one male guard had mimed having with her in a lift and another asked for a hug. And guess what they said was the way forward? Instead of having one male guard, have two. You know, which is crazy.
And I think until you know that's quite a serious allegation, and it's quite a serious topic. You know, so you know, I don't think we should you know
trivialize it.
I don't think we should sort of belittle that or not give it the sort of importance that it is. If somebody's making an accusation like that, that's quite a serious accusation. So you know, unless we have the facts, I don't think we should really go any further on this one, because we don't really know the full ins and outs. It might have been reported and we might be talking out of turn and actually not know exactly what the real info is on this one. So I would leave that one for another day.
Yes. It's on the BBC page here just 4 hours ago, you know. So that's another thing. But anyway, let's move on to the space race, guys. Because this is the biggest thing, really. Billionaires and their space race versus poverty. I mean, Amazon, Richard Branson, who is going into space? Who is Garry or Anthony? Anthony, I know you're showing pictures all over the place. I mean, are you going to show a picture waving to us from space?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to show a picture of being in space. Yeah, I'm a fully paid up member of that particular fraternity. The space I'm talking about is space in this particular room right now. You know, and I've got plenty of space, and I really enjoy. You know, I've enjoyed the race to get to this room this evening to be part of the show. So
yes.
But with regards to the billionaires and playing with their toys and and money to burn, clearly if you've got money to burn and you don't know what to do with it, then why not go to space? I think what Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos have actually shown is just how quick, when you put private money into doing something, how quickly you can get results. I mean, let's face it, NASA and other countries, the UK included, have been trying to get spaceships and men to the moon for years. Amazon, Jeff Bezos turns up with a couple of billion and suddenly says, hey, build me a toy that I can fly to the moon in. And within, a few years, this guy's up there and playing with his toy. So I think it goes to show when money talks, people start to do things, and it shows maybe in government the waste of money, or in organizations like central governments where they waste billions and billions. You got Richard Branson and co. Look how quickly they have made this happen.
Yes.
So I think there's some good things to come from it in terms of innovation and what can happen when people are really committed. But also it shows maybe how bad government are in wasting resources that are available to them for free.
Garry, picking up from what Anthony said, and you can pick up from what Anthony said, I leave you with the next question. Do you think the timing is right in light of what is happening?
No, not at all. Not at all. What waste? What a waste. Now, I love space. I will support my brother Anthony. I love my space here. Just the right amount of space for me. But what a waste. Now Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Richard Branson, with a combined wealth of over 400 billion US dollars. Yeah. A small nation, that's the GDP probably of a small nation. During this pandemic time, these men, probably individually, such as Jeff Bezos, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to really say anything out of turn here, but he had made more money in the last year and a half than at any other time since he's been ahead of Amazon.
Yes.
And all they can talk about is spending or buying a ticket for 28 million US dollars just to take a 10-minute flight into the atmosphere to come back down to spend for 1 minute and come back down here. Yet you've got people in India, you've got people in Madagascar. I was incensed, like my heart turned yesterday evening when I watched on RT News. I believe it was RT. I don't think it was Al Jazeera, where they gave a news report about the people of Madagascar.
Yes.
How they are having to collect insects and eat and fry them. And yet we have individuals now, obviously, okay, fine. People may say, that's my money. I've worked hard for it. I deserve and I can spend what I'm fine. I don't envy anybody with their monies or anything like that. That is fine. That is fine. But when it comes, my friends, to what we are in, too many people are dying. And these men, whom I believe, talking about from a spiritual aspect now, these men have been blessed by God. Let me interject.
The rainfall of the just and the unjust, is it?
Exactly. Not only to bless themselves, but to bless others.
Yeah.
And we have these monies around, and we can't even find some way to help people all over the world. Feed them. Now, tell me, I mean, is that a good way of spending money? Is that the best way that they could do to spend money? I know people need to eat.
Yes.
They have employed. These people will say that, will qualify it by saying that they have employed hundreds of people, thousands of people. That's good. Okay, do that. But yet there's much more people who haven't got food right now to give their child. Right now.
Well, you know what it says here is that Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Richard Branson have a combined net worth of 400 billion, roughly the size of the GDP of the entire nation of Ireland. But what can you say based on what they have done? They have actually given over 100 million each, one to two CNN personnel, Van, what's his name, and another person, 100 million each. This is Jeff Bezos, in order to do some work and some charity work around the world. Is it that their way of trying to appease persons who may come very critical of them?
Can I say something here, my friend?
Yes.
This country, the United Kingdom, I've never seen a country that can raise money like the United Kingdom has, by the Red Nose Day and all the other charitable movements that have been started in this country, and it's admirable. Every year, millions are raised. Am I correct?
Yes.
Millions are raised. Millions have, but at the same time, it would seem that it's just a drop in the ocean. Why? Why every year we can raise 28 million pounds?
Yes.
And every year it goes up, but yet it would seem that nothing really is being done. There is so much donations of all sorts. There are so many charitable causes, so many charitable organizations that are going on, that are doing something. And I'm not saying that they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
But what is happening? Is it all going into administrative costs? I want to know that, because the thing about it is that with the amount of resources that are being given, donated, handed over to several people and to several organizations, such as what Jeff 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 has done and Elon Musk and such in donating 100 million, then I believe that there should be some proof of what's really going on out there. But it would seem that there are more and more people every year that are still not being fed, still not being clothed. There's no help. So what's going on? Can Anthony help me?
Yeah. But before I bring in Anthony, Aqua on Instagram says, agree, what a waste. 100% agree. Vita Ferguson here mentioned personal gratification. Anthony, these guys work hard for their money, isn't it? They work hard for their money, and they employ thousands of staff around the world. They contribute to taxes, in a sense, through their employees. Aren't they able to just spend their money as they see fit?
Well, I think, it's a fine line. I mean, Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world now. And yes, Amazon is a very successful organization. It does employ tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes.
And I suppose, if any of us were in his position, would we not, we may not want to go to space, but maybe we would indulge ourselves in another way. And let's be honest, those of us who have been successful and have worked hard, do we not treat ourselves and buy expensive items or whatever? So just because he happens to be Jeff Bezos, he could be Jeff Francis. We don't, somebody who we don't know who equally has a lot of money. We don't know what he's spending his money on. So, for example, talk about Facebook, or we talk about Apple. They have also got other people who earn billions, not just people like the guy who founded Microsoft, Bill Gates. There are other individuals who earn billions and billions. No one's talking about them. It's because Jeff Bezos and Sir Richard Branson are in the public eye, and they've gone out and bought this toy. But people are entitled, I suppose, at the end of the day, Selborne, if they want to spend their money in a particular way, that's entirely up to them. And I think, Pastor Graham, you mentioned that he's been blessed. Yes, he has been blessed, and others have been blessed. But also, he has provided work. He has provided people with jobs, salaries, careers, and that in itself is also to be commended. So, it's a fine line. Do we criticize him because he's successful and say he shouldn't go to space? Or do we, for me, I think the thing that comes to mind here is none of us should make comments or judge against him if we live in our glass houses.
Richard Branson, when he was in space, he said something which would make sense to a lot of people who dream. And he said, wow, I've dreamt of this all my life. And he said, you can do it, you can dream, of course, and he was saying, you guys go for the skies, go for the stars, the sky is unlimited, I mean, Garry, what do you say about that? These guys have reached the pinnacle of their success. They're on their last, somebody said, I wonder what's going to happen with Earth. Why are these guys going into space? Are they seeing something that we don't see it? Why are they all going into space? Garry, what's your take on your last bit on this, in light of what Anthony said there? And I heard what you said, clear, Garry.
Yeah, they've been blessed. It's good to dream, because that's when things are born. That's where things come out of. In every sphere, in every area of life, people who are successful didn't just jump out of bed one day and say, well, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to be great. But somewhere along their journey, along their walk, they dreamed about doing something. It was formed here. Then they worked forward. And out of that, a lot of good has happened. And yes, I take my hat off to, let me say, Richard Branson. If you know his story, if you've read his story and his book, you will see that he failed many times. He had to go over hurdles. He had to crawl on the bushes. He had to do a lot of things. A lot of things that we wouldn't chance ourselves doing it. How many of us We want to be successful, but we don't want to taste the death of, or the bitter bile of being taken to court
Yes.
for possession. No, none of us want to do that. But
Yes.
these women who are successful now, that's what they had to face. That's what many of them lost everything in order to have what they have. And I have nothing at all against that. I'm just saying, my friend and my esteemed colleague, that I'm just saying that with all of these resources that is placed in the hands of one man, of one individual, of individuals across our globe. Come on, man. If you can spend a billion pounds, a billion US dollars, if you can spend that on a piece of high-tech machinery to propel you into space, to keep you up there at this time for 1 minute, for 1.5 minutes, for you to feel weightlessness. You haven't even gone to the moon yet, if you can get there. You haven't gone there yet. You're spending
I didn't know that they spent. I didn't know that they spent such a short time up there. I was surprised when it was down the next minute.
Now, what I'm saying, there are people on the earth. There are people right where you live that needs a morsel of bread. Give it to them, man. Make some provision. I don't envy. I'm not saying that I want any of it. No, I'm very happy with what I have. I'm just saying that there's got to be some equilibrium. There's got to be some measure of what we do on the earth. There's got to be. Because man wasn't created to fly in space. Man was created to be right where you are, right in their own little space here.
In the beginning was the word was God. Anthony, your last word. It's the truth.
Well, here it is. The truth is this: if you're successful and you achieve great success, then at the end of the day, you're entitled to actually do what you want with your money. Yes, you're right, Pastor Graham. Richard Branson did start out in a phone box many years ago when he set up Virgin Records. Many people aren't committed to putting in that hard graft. He's been doing that for the last 40, 50 years. So if he wants to then go and fly to the moon or fly around in a spacecraft, that's entirely his prerogative. His prerogative isn't to feed the world because they're hungry. That's not his job. His job is that he's built his company, he's provided opportunities and careers for people, and he's simply taken some of that proceeds of success and has bought himself a toy. I don't feel he's done anything wrong. I do understand what you're saying about people going hungry and governments, and I think I've just read one of the points that someone is saying about charities get all of these monies every year. I think you touched on it as well. But you also have to remember that the UK have just cut their aid amount they give each year. But even though they've cut it, they still give billions. And that's just one country giving billions. You've got all the other G7 who also give billions. And I know it goes into another organization. I don't know which organization. And they're meant to distribute this money around the world places. I don't know what they do with all these billions of money that gets collected and gets given to them. I have no idea, because every year we see the same bucket come out and people have to put in again. But yet we see the same problems. Nothing has been cured.
Well, I'm just seeing some comments here. I just shared them a bit. Donald says, to who so much is given, so much is required. And somebody take task with Garry when they said that, who tell you that who tell you that man wasn't supposed to be in space?
Hey, I mean,
you have to show them that you have to go for the Bible, Garry. Where is it?
Well, put it this way.
Yes.
Let me say something. Anything higher than my bed is too high for me, right? I get vertigo when I
and Michelle said God did not say that SMDH, whatever. Right. Well, anyway, it's a very interactive program today. I want to thank you so much, Garry, thank you so much for your insight, and looking forward for you to come back again as well. Anthony, as usual, continue taking your tan. You might look like me eventually.
I hope so.
Sorry, Garry.
It's all right if your listeners would take a note here. Is that I'm the only one with hair on my head, just about.
I cut mine, Garry. I've got it. I cut it.
See, Michelle will say, "Well, God didn't say you have to have hair." She might come back and say, that is given by G's country. Always have strings attached. Okay. The comment there, and let the comments keep coming in. One more thing, the sun. How are you guys enjoying the sun? I mean, I know Anthony got his tan already, but this heat which is going on around this place.
Yeah, we all like the sun. End of.
Well, anyway, I'll leave a note on this. I'll leave Peter Ferguson note. Yes.
It's the best side.
Well, hold on, Anthony. Let's show your best side. Show the ball.
There it is.
Show the ball. Yeah. And what can I say? You know what I mean? Okay. Well, listen, guys. Have a good night, and thank you so much for that. Okay. Peace out, and see you around.
God bless. Okay. God bless.
Cheers. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for that, and thank you for a very interactive show with Reverend Garry Graham, who is the pastor of Leeds Church of God of Prophecy, and Anthony Johnson, the author of Think It, Plan It, Do It Now, which is a powerful book. You need to check out that book. But before I go, I want to just share that this Sunday night, I have this gentleman who is going to be on the show, and he's a serious guy. He wrote this book. He do a lot of books in Jamaica. That is my quest in trying to keep abreast with Jamaica and also to support Jamaicans. The Niger Taylor, aka the Niger. He's called the Writing God. You know, Garry, if you're there. He's a young Jamaican multi-award winning writer, author, educator, and content creator. In 2017, the entrepreneur created a social enterprise, Studio Dan, a Jamaican-based production studio that specializes in the self-publishing of the authentic Jamaican Afrocentric reading books, textbook, and the hosting of live edutainment events. Very powerful guy. And he said something to me the other day. He said, especially with children, find out what your children are good at and actually support them with what they are naturally good at in their spare time. You know, of course, positive things, you know. So the Niger will be coming up. The Niger will be the Ija, you know. We were talking about I. The I in it is saying, as a Rastafari, I is natural. And I grew up in Ocherius, and in Ocherius, I've got some dreadlocks used to be on my street. They used to call me I More. I More is Seymour. So they say I More, not Seymour, I More. So check out Sunday night, 9 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Jamaica time, with the Niger Taylor. We'll have a very interesting interview with this young gentleman. And I look forward to seeing you guys there as well. Finally, I want to say happy birthday to the Prime Minister of Jamaica. That is Sir Andrew Holness. I hope I'm correct that it is his birthday, because I seen it going around. I think it was his anniversary yesterday, I believe, for him and his wife. But I saw something today say it is his birthday today, so I just want to shout out to my good friend. You might have seen my interview with him already. Happy birthday to Andrew Holness, the Prime Minister of Jamaica. Wish him all the best and many returns, that he can see many more in this lifetime. So without further ado, let me say good night and thank you very much, guys. Those on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, remember to like and share. Hey, how are you, official Instagram and those guys? Talk and Sip this Saturday night as well. Make sure all you got to do is have a drink. You don't have to have a wine or anything, just have a drink. Okay? Peace out. God bless you. And bye-bye.